All right, we are live. So, hello and welcome, everyone. And first, please congratulate yourself, little pat on the back for taking the time for self care and spending the next 15 minutes with Jackie and me. We will start with our mindful movement with Jackie.
Thanks, Pierre. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are going to start with a movement that you can do anytime you want to take a pause. It's called the hand tracing practice. And you can take one hand, either hand, and just take your index finger and put it on the side of your pinky finger. And we're going to breathe in as our finger goes up our finger and out as it goes down our finger. And we're going to do this just tracing our entire hand. So it's really a 5-breath practice. I'll start again from the beginning. So we go, breathe in and out, and in and out, and in and out, and in and out, and in and out. And this really can help us sync our somatic sort of sensing with our breath. And this was shared with me by a friend who is a social worker and shares this with many of her clients if they're feeling anxious or like they just want to take a moment before either making a decision or responding. So it's something nice to have in the toolbox if it speaks to you and resonates with you in your practices. So we're going to actually do a little bit of core activation and then a roll up, roll down before we transition to Pierre's practice. So for this, if you're sitting in a chair, go ahead and stay seated. And I'm going to take my hands and put them in front of me, and I'm going to turn either direction to just look behind me as far as I can go. And then I'm actually going to grab whatever I can of my chair, and I'm going to sit up as straight as possible. And then just look behind me as far as I can go, really working my edge, my twist edge. This really helps us kind of stretch out our back, our abdomen, our lower back too. And then we're just going to reverse that and just go the other direction. When you naturally stop, see what you can grab of the chair. Okay, and then come back to center. And we're going to do some V-leans, and I will scoot this down a little bit so you can see me. So go ahead and take your arms, put them up, and you can turn them into a V. And then I'm going to keep my sits bones, right, my bottom on the chair. I'm going to keep my feet on the ground, but I'm just going to lean to one side as much as I can without having it lift, right? So keeping my sits bones on the chair, just lean to one side. And this will probably start engaging and activating the core here. You may even warm up a little bit. Same thing, come back to center, all the way over to the other side. And I go just until my body tells me, oh, if you're gonna go farther, you might tip. So just staying there in that sort of sweet spot. All right, and back to center. You can go ahead and let that go. Even do a bit of a shake out, move your arms, move your head. And then lastly, before we come back to sitting, we're going to do a roll down. And this is also something you can do any day or time, especially if we've been sitting for a long time. Might feel nice. So I'm going to make sure that my feet are about hip width apart. And then I'm going to bend at the waist, so I'm not locking my knees, right? But just have a little bit of a bend. I know it's hard to see all of me. And then my head is going to lead, and I'm just going to let it take me down. So I'm bended over. And here, if you want, you can do just a gentle shake your head yes, and a shake your head no. And then slowly roll back up, just stacking one vertebrae over the other, over the other, over the other, over the other, until we are back up and straight. And go ahead and find your seat. And that's our 5 minutes of mindful movement to kick us off today.
Okay, well, thank you, Jackie. Very enjoyable and mindful. And how about we continue with a few slow and deep breaths as usual. And a good time to close the eyes or have a dull gaze towards the floor if you prefer. And when you're ready, you can go back to normal breathing. And our practice today is going to be what we call the deep dive. And you'll see a little later why we call it the deep dive. So it has to do with managing through difficult situations mindfully and staying calm instead of being reactive. So let's start by bringing to mind a difficult situation that may be causing unpleasant feelings of some sort. And for practice purposes, it's probably best not to select the most difficult for now, maybe medium or mild difficult. And if no specific situation comes to mind right now, that's okay too. You can keep practicing with us so you can get acquainted with the practice for the future. And the first step is to explore the unpleasant feeling and label it. So, what is it that you're feeling as a result of this situation? Is it fear or anger or anxiety or maybe resentment or sadness or something else? Feelings can be sometimes difficult to name. It is important, however, to come up with a name to the best of your ability right now. So it doesn't have to be exact, just a word or two that best represent what you're experiencing. And it can be more than one thing. So maybe it's resentment and sadness. So the second step, step number 2, is ranking. So this is about ranking the situation on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 would be the most tragic event that can happen, and 10 would be the happiest, best thing that can happen. And even though there is no such a universal scale, it still helps to share some examples with you from the various sessions we did. So 1, for many people, tends to be very extreme and something like the death of a loved one. 2 might be chronic sickness or severe pain. 3, for many people, is losing a relationship or a big financial loss. 4 might be having a conflict with someone. 5 would be neutral, and then moving towards the positive events. So where does this unpleasant situation rank for you? And just to remind you, we are ranking the situation, so the event itself. And it's a good time to take a breath and let the first 2 steps sink in. And that's just a reminder, the first 2 steps were the naming and then the ranking. So the first 2 steps typically give us some perspective and help us calm down our nervous system. So if you are feeling a little better at this point, enjoy it, and there is more to come, so stay with us. If the unpleasant feeling persists, that's okay. The next steps are likely to help. And let's move to step number 3, which is the allowing step. So what would it be like to let this feeling be and be curious about it? Let it go where it needs to go and see what it really feels like. So instead of what we normally do, which is resisting it, denying it, or trying to fix it, how about doing the counterintuitive, which is being curious, replacing resistance by curiosity? It's a good time to also check in with our body. So where do you feel this in your body right now? And again, with curiosity. And if you can relax this area, that would be great. Or just feeling it for a bit and making a quick note of it. And now to the next step, step number 4, which is the learning step. So this is pausing to reflect on what can I learn from this feeling. So let's say this is resentment and ranking number 4, or whatever it is for you. So the first learning is that this feeling is not going to kill me. It's unpleasant, but I'm able to tolerate it. And if and when it happens again, I will be able to tolerate it. The second learning has to do with noticing what triggered this feeling and therefore starting to learn more about our triggers. And as we continue to learn about our triggers in the future, we're going to get deeper insights into the beliefs behind these triggers. And that's, by the way, what we call the deep dive. So this is why this practice is called the deep dive. And as a result, we'll be able to reframe these beliefs into something that's more realistic, more constructive, and hopefully over time, diffuse these triggers little by little. So another deep breath to enjoy the last two steps and let them sink in a bit. And now it's time for our last step, which is step number 5, which is bringing our attention back to the present moment, in this case, by taking a few deep breaths and paying attention to the breath. And one more breath, one last one. And when you're ready, you can start to move a little and then slowly open your eyes and reconnect with your surroundings. So thank you all, and thank you, Jackie. And we look forward to seeing you this Thursday. That will be our last live session in this series, and hopefully continuing to connect in a variety of ways.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Pierre.
Take care. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.